Welcome to So and So, brought to you by Bernina, made to create. I'm Meg Goodman, and you're about to enjoy a casual conversation with a special member of the sewist and quilting community. A conversation about how they got started, what inspires them, what excites them, and their connection to this community. Today on So and So, we welcome Catherine Holbrook, sewist, Bernina Ambassador, class of 2024, OLFA expert, and former Styla Patterns designer. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, and raised in Lexington, Kentucky, Catherine attended the University of Kentucky, where she earned a bachelor's degree in business management. Right out of college, she worked as an HR manager for Target. She married her college sweetheart in 2013. They eventually moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for his training, and this is where she first discovered sewing. She looked up hobbies for 26-year-olds and was directed to Merrick's art blogs on sewing your own clothes. That Christmas, she asked for and received her first sewing machine and has never looked back. She began documenting her sewing journey in January of 2019 and currently has more than 150,000 followers on Instagram and almost 80,000 on Facebook. She's been featured on Simplicity, OLFA, Metler Thread, and Styla Patterns. Catherine makes her home in Richmond, Kentucky with her husband and their 3 children, Jackson, Graham, and Haddie, and their 6-year-old German short-haired pointer, Juniper Joy, who loves to appear with Catherine in her Instagram stories. Catherine Holbrook, welcome to So and So.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Meg.
You are welcome. And Juniper Joy, I love that name.
Yes, we adopted her a couple years ago when she was 4 years old,
Uh-huh.
and she's been part of the family ever since. I actually have a funny story with her. So she's a 4-year-old German short-haired pointer, GSP for short, and she was actually born the exact same day as my daughter.
Oh my.
Isn't that wild? So they both age up the next year on the exact same day. So May 27th of this year, my daughter and my now second daughter, Juniper Joy, will turn 6 years old. Isn't that funny?
I bet there's some good birthday party pictures from that.
Oh, yes. My daughter loves Juniper. She's the best.
And I'm sure it goes both ways too.
Oh, yes. She fits right into our family. I like to call her my 4th child.
Well, I do encourage people to go to your Instagram and see her in your stories.
She's the cutest. I do sew for her too. So occasionally you'll see some handmade bandanas on her.
Well, let's start talking about you sewing. You began when you were 26.
Yeah, later start.
Yeah, very much so. Yes. We have people who started when they were 3 and 4. So, how did you learn this and who was your inspiration?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. You mentioned it earlier, but my husband and I got married in 2013. And in 2014, the next year, we moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for him to do his residency at Wake Forest. And he was gone, about 100 hours a week in his training. And so I was new to the city, didn't really have friends, was just trying to find my way in this new environment and figured I needed to find a hobby, something to keep me busy. And so, like you said, I picked up Google and I searched, what's a fun hobby for a 26-year-old girl? And up popped this blog called Merrick's Art. And it was a blog post of a woman who made her own clothes. And I thought, well, maybe I can do that.
Uh-huh.
I had never sewn before, never even touched a sewing machine, but I'd always loved fashion. And so I thought, well, maybe I could try my hand at making my own clothes. And so that Christmas, I asked my mom for a sewing machine for Christmas, and she delivered, and it was love at first stitch. I haven't looked back since.
So, you talked about asking your mom for the sewing machine. Did she sew or any other members of your family sew before you learned?
My mom may have done sewing way back in the day, home ec class and whatnot, but she wasn't a seamstress.
Uh-huh.
She did do some cross stitching, so there was a little bit of creativity. But a lot of times they say sewing skips a generation. And in my case, that seems to be true because my
Mhm.
grandmother did sew. What's funny though is that my husband's grandmother was an avid quilter, and
Huh.
we've actually acquired some of her quilts, and we've given them to our kids. But we've also acquired some of her non-finished quilts, and she has since passed. And so I'm thinking this year about carrying on that legacy and finishing the quilts. But yeah, it kind of was a random thing for me to get into sewing, but I'm so glad I did because up to that point, I had never really felt like I had my thing, you
Hmm.
know? And then once I started sewing, it was like it was meant to be. This was the thing that brought me so much joy, got me excited to wake up in the morning. I've always loved it from the first stitch.
So it is your thing now.
It's my thing.
It is.
It is.
Now we know that you're currently teaching your daughter Haddie to sew, and she will be 6 years old next month. Um,
Yes.
how's that going?
It's going great.
Hmm.
I always used to joke, I am such a girly girl. So I always used to joke that if God was going to give me a daughter, that she was probably going to be a tomboy, just be so opposite of me. But to my great surprise and joy, she is exactly like me. She's
Hmm.
super girly, loves the twirly dresses that I make her because I do so for her often. And so she has been asking this past year, "Hey, mom, I think I really want to learn to sew." And so just recently I said, "Okay, well come with me and I'm going to teach you, how to stitch a straight line, and then we can move on to doing zigzags." And so it has been absolutely precious. A couple weeks ago was when she was able to complete a perfectly straight line. I had drawn a guideline from a Frixion pin, and then
Hmm.
she sewed over top of it. And you should have seen her. I wish I had recorded it. She came to me running, leaping, jumping for joy. I mean, it was like she had won the lottery. Sewing
Well, to
the
her, she
strangest thing.
did, right?
I know, and it was so precious. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes. She's asked me every day to sew with me. And so I really think she may have caught the sewing bug, but time will tell. Time will tell.
Well, I think we have a future Instagram star on our hands here.
Oh, and she is such a ham. If you knew her, oh, she loves the camera, loves to show off, loves to just have fun and be silly. She's so sweet.
Well, we'll look forward to that. You actually entered garment sewing through refashioning clothes. So tell us what this is and talk about the first piece you ever made.
Yes. So refashioning clothes is basically taking a garment that's already made and recreating it into something else. So sometimes you can take a jacket and you can recreate it into, a handbag. What I tend to love to do is take something that doesn't fit well, or maybe just isn't my style, or maybe it's fairly dated, and make it, reimagine it into something more modern, something that fits more flattering. Yeah, something that seems hip and cool for today's, day and age. And so how I started with that, when we were living in North Carolina, we were on a real tight budget at the time. And so my only alternatives really for getting a new wardrobe was shopping secondhand.
Hmm.
And so, and I had never attempted to make something. And so I felt like at the time it might be easier if I actually refashioned something that I bought from a thrift store, versus making something from scratch. I still wasn't familiar that much with patterns at the time. And so that's what I did. I would go to Goodwill. I would find something that I maybe loved the fabric consistency of, whatever the fabric texture was, the design, but I didn't love the fit. And I would alter it to then fit it to myself. Now, were my first few garments the best? No, probably not. Probably not if I look back on it.
Uh-huh.
But it was thrilling to be able to reimagine anything. If you
Hmm.
know how to sew, you can see anything for just the fabric content and not for the design, because you can rework it into whatever you want it to be. And so that's how I got started. I attempted some in North Carolina, but then it really was in January of 2019, after the birth of my second child. My body had changed so much through pregnancies and nursing, and I needed to find some new garments that fit me better. And so I started going to Goodwill and Bargain Hunt and thrift stores and repurposing. the garments into something wearable. So if you scroll back, I have quite a few posts on my Instagram, but if you scroll back all the way to the beginning, you're going to see that process as some of the first few posts, taking just an average kind of sweater and turning it into a sweater that had a slit down the back with 3 bows and yeah, all of the things in between that.
Now, you mentioned you didn't know patterns well, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but do you still refashion clothing?
I do. I
Uh-huh.
do. I don't do it as much these days because I have more limited time with the age of my children,
Mhm,
but I do, and it's actually one of my favorite things I do.
mhm,
Every time I refashion something, I think, man, I think this is my favorite form of sewing because you're taking something that otherwise would have been tossed out by someone, you
mhm.
know, and you're reimagining it to be something that is wearable. I find that process really beautiful.
And, maybe a direction for Haddie to go now.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. Well, she loves some twirly dresses, so
Mm,
it was
mhm.
nothing to go to a thrift store and find a dress that's my size and chop it down to be something for her. Maybe even make a matching doll outfit. That would be fun.
Sure. Now again, you mentioned that when you started this, you really didn't know patterns, but you certainly do now, because you worked for Styla Patterns for 2 years. You designed 11 adult women's patterns. So, a couple things. How did this come about? And tell us how one designs patterns.
Oh, it is an extensive process. So shout out to all the pattern designers out there. Well, I started pattern testing for Styla Patterns early on in my garment sewing journey. So I think probably in 2019, by the end of that year, I had quite a bit of sewing under my belt. And so I decided to pattern test for them. And I did that for about a year, got to know the designers, signed up for every pattern test I could do, and I was thrilled with it. And so, one of the pattern designers at the time, Jen, and I had become friends, and we, spoke online and we talked through all the patterns. And I had told her, "Hey, I'm really thinking I might want to become a pattern designer. What does this process look like?" And so she kind of walked through the process, and soon enough, I actually onboarded onto Stylo with her. So we became coworkers, which was such a dream. She's so wonderful. And they had a training in Styla Patterns that basically trained me from start to finish on how to create a pattern. So a lot of people always ask, how were you trained or what classes can I take? And I really did all of my onboarding through Styla.
Mhm,
But for those listening who are wanting to get into it, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube that can help you with the process, but there's also courses on Craftsy and different sites like that that can teach you kind of the basics of pattern designing.
mhm,
But it was really amazing because not only was I learning the basics of how to pattern design, but I actually ended up learning how to grade the pattern to fit all sizes. So with Styla Patterns, the size range is size 0 to 32. And as the pattern designer, you got to be the one that graded it out. So it was really amazing because I got to learn how the curves move and shift as you move through the size range.
hmm,
Um, but we did all of that. I know there's different programs out there, but for us, we did Adobe Illustrator was what
mhm.
we used to create the patterns.
Do you still design?
I don't design patterns for sale anymore, but I do still have my subscription to Adobe Illustrator.
Uh-huh,
And I do from time to time create patterns for myself. I actually, and I think we'll talk about it later, I tend to make a couple ball gowns a year.
mhm.
And for those, I tend to do a lot of the designing in Adobe Illustrator.
I wanna talk about those ball gowns, because I
Yes.
think this is pretty special. You make 2 gowns a year, which are 50% your design and 50% suggestions and voting from your audience.
Yes.
Would walk us through this. This is special.
Oh, it is so fun. It truly is probably my favorite thing I do online, and my audience has always agreed. They joke that it's their reality show for the week leading up to the party when I wear the ball gown because it's just there's so many twists and turns to the design. But essentially, this is how I started my Instagram page from the get go. Actually,
Mhm,
is I started kind of with an idea of what I wanted to make or what I wanted to refashion. And then I had the audience vote how they wanted to see it come together. And
mhm.
so, kind of from the get go, every design I make is kind of 50% mine, 50% the audience's. direction. So, particularly with the ball gowns, they're so fun. I do one in the summer and then one in the winter. So, they're about 6 months apart, so twice a year. And um, we start by coming up with a design. So, I'll have an inspiration photo that I found online, or I'll have a color scheme, something. And then it's basically, the audience taking me through how to create it. So I will come up with a base design and then they will vote to alter it a certain way. And then sometimes I'll hit a snag and we'll have to figure out, it's a make it work situation like on
Hmm.
Project Runway. And we'll have to figure out what I can do. And sometimes it has been treacherous. And I typically will start the design the week before the event, and so we are down to the wire trying to get this ball gown to work before the big event, and so it's a blast.
And talk about the big event. What is that?
So we have two events here locally. There's one in the summer. It's a charity ball for our local hospital where my husband works. And so the theme is different every year. Last year it was, garden party theme. So a lot of people were dressed more like Bridgerton.
Mm.
And so if you go on my Instagram, you'll see there's a pink dress that I made for that one. That's a big ball gown. Looks very much like a garden party. The fabric was a pink floral. Um, and then in the winter time is a Christmas party that my husband and I host for our community. And so those gowns tend to be more in the Christmas color scheme,
Mhm.
reds, greens, black velvets. And those are more kind of warmer leaning garments, whereas the summer one is more, short sleeve or off the shoulder, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Do you have a favorite gown?
Oh, that's like picking a favorite child.
Exactly.
I don't know if I have a favorite because I really have loved each of them for different reasons. But I will say I do think this last summer's gown. Oh, or here, both the gowns in 2025 were probably my favorite year's worth of gowns.
Mhm.
In the summer, it was that garden party themed, beautiful off the shoulder, drapey sleeves. The audience really helped me come up with a design with that one. And then this past winter, I did a black, or not, excuse, not black. I did a red satin gown that had
Mhm.
a big bow on it, and bows are my signature style. So it was off the floor. It had a mermaid silhouette. It was absolutely beautiful. It looked almost like a Christmas present. And so I think just with how long I've been sewing and how I've been able to improve my craft, I feel like those two have been the most well-made gowns. And I think it shows in the photos too. Just the confidence I have wearing those versus some of the other gowns I've made. So yeah, 2025's gowns took the cake.
Okay, and now we'll see what you come up with this year. Have you started your summer gown yet?
No, I
No.
wish. I wish I could say that I start early, but I really love the adrenaline that it gets me starting it the week before.
Mhm.
So I will typically choose a fabric that because you have to order it in time to come in. So I typically will choose a fabric about a month leading up to it once I know the theme of the event. But then really I start on it typically on the Monday and the event is typically on a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
So I have to knock it out within 6 days, but it tends to be one of the most thrilling weeks in sewing because it feels like I'm on a live version of Project Runway.
Well, pretty much.
So, yeah,
Pretty much.
it is stressful, but fun stress.
We'll look forward to that. Let's talk about your social media. When I was introducing you, I mentioned the followers that you have on Instagram and Facebook, and you have exponentially grown your audience. What's the secret of your success?
That is a great question, and I scratch my head every day wondering, "What in the world have I done to get to this point?" But I really do think it goes back to a couple things, mainly authenticity. I show up some days looking like I can go to a ball, right? I'm all dolled up, I've got my makeup on, got a cute outfit on, and then other days I show up when I've rolled out of bed or when I'm heading to bed and it's
Mhm.
it's all the things in between. And so I think just not taking it so seriously has really helped. there's been times where there's been moments of rapid growth where I start second guessing, and get a little unsure of what I'm doing. But in general, I really have just kept it a fun hobby that I do on the side in my spare time. And I think just that authenticity of not taking it too seriously, showing up however I look, however I'm feeling, has really connected with the audience. And sometimes I think things can be over curated, online. And so I think people just respond to, I genuinely am just a small town mom of three, taking it day by day,
Mhm.
living a family life with my kids. And I just happen to love sewing and talking about it online. And I think that authenticity resonates. But then I do also think the kind of the unique take I've had since I started of having such input from my audience has, I think, led to a better engagement because individuals who are watching me create really are partaking in the creation. And so I think they take ownership
Mhm.
in what I'm sewing, even though they aren't physically creating the garment, they are in some way because they're voting. And I always go off what the votes say, what direction to take it. So, yeah, I think those two things have made it just a really fun experience over the last, 6, 7 years.
Do you have any special stories of interactions with your audience that you can share?
Well, gosh, I've learned so many things.
Mhm.
I think that also is going back to your question prior. I think that's also a thing is I really am self-taught and learn as I go, and I have learned so many things from my audience about how I've done things wrong or a different way you could do things, and I always repost those. Anytime someone sends me a suggestion, I tend to repost those. So I think just the interaction of learning as I go with my audience has been really fun because I genuinely come away with a new understanding of how to do things. For example, right now I'm learning how to quilt. And let me tell you, that is a whole world of sewing that I am completely unfamiliar with. And I've already learned the coolest things of how to improve your quilting. So yeah, I think just the interaction has been fun.
So I wanna talk about that quilting. You said it was your husband's grandmother's quilts?
Yes. Yeah, she was an avid, quilter and made quilts for the whole family, and when she passed, we ended up acquiring a few of them, and, they were unfinished at the time, so my in-laws, went and had them finished by a local seamstress and gave them to my kids for Christmas this year, which was so sweet. But we have also acquired some of her unfinished quilts. She has one in particular, I think it's called Dutch Girls, Little Dutch Girls,
Mhm.
and I am wanting to finish that sometime. Maybe 2026 is the year, but I would love to carry on that legacy and finish the quilts that she had started.
You said to you, quilting is very different than sewing. How so?
Oh, it's completely different. I actually just recently went on a retreat with Craft with Bethany, and we did quilted sneakers. And so it
Huh.
was my first time drawing lines and attaching foam and quilting over it and putting it together. And there was one night where we did trivia, and half the questions were garment sewing questions, and half of them were quilting questions. And let me tell you, I aced those garment sewing questions, but I didn't know a single one of those quilting questions. There's just it's a whole new world. It's different. It's typically, cotton fabrics. There's different names for things like jelly roll and cake squares and charm packs, and I it's all new to me.
Not
So
not for
unlike
long,
in
though.
not for long. I'm hoping to get more familiar with it, but I just think both both garment sewing and quilting are arts, but they are very different
Mhm.
arts. And I think with garment sewing, you're really learning how to contour fabric to fit the curves of your body. And quilting, it's almost like you're figuring out how to contour the fabrics to fit within a square. It's very different. And the angles are different and the curves are different. And there's a bunch of different steps. And so it actually excites me to get into quilting because I feel like I have been sewing garments for so long.
Mhm.
At some point you don't know it all for sure, but you do. It's not often that I learn something new every time I sew a new garment, but with quilting it's a whole new world every
Mhm.
time I sit down to start quilting, I learned something new. And so for me, that's exciting to have a whole nother area of sewing that I haven't explored yet.
So we've talked about your daughter, Haddie. You also have Jackson and Graham and your husband and Juniper Joy.
Mhm.
Would you tell us about your family?
Oh, I love my family. My world revolves around my family.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I were college sweethearts. We met at the University of Kentucky. We have a funny story, actually. My husband and I are both avid music listeners. We love music. We go to tons of concerts, and we also love to dance. And so we met in college at a 24-hour dance marathon. It was a fundraiser that he was participating in with his fraternity, and I was participating in with my sorority. And there was a big group of people in a circle, and people would go in the middle and pull someone in to dance with them, one of those dance circles. And he just happened to see me across the way on the other side of the circle, didn't know him from Adam, pulls me in, we dance, we stuck by each other's side the rest of the 24 hours of the dance marathon. And we're together ever since. We did end up having a little bit of a break, but came back together. And yeah, quickly got married. We've had 3 babies. We've moved to North Carolina, moved to Richmond, Kentucky, and now we're pretty settled.
There's a movie in that, Catherine. There's,
Oh, there is. There
uh-huh.
truly is. I mean, it really is written from a movie, him pulling me into the into the
Mm-hmm.
circle. But no, we're living such a fun life right now. Our kids
Mm-hmm.
are turning 6, 8, and 10. So we're out of that season where you have sleepless nights and you have
Mm-hmm.
diapers, and we're moving into more of we're kind of helping cultivate these kids into adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a really sweet time. They're playing sports right now, so we're on the soccer field most Saturday mornings, and we love to go biking in Berea, which is a city next to us. They have wonderful bike paths, so we go biking and hiking, and we actually, like I said, we're avid music listeners. So we have actually just recently taken them to their first music festival, which is so fun, and concerts, and we're doing the family thing right now, and it's been an absolute blast.
So in yours and my correspondence leading up to doing this podcast together, it's clear to me that you are a woman of faith.
Yes.
And how does that drive or affect your work?
That's a great question. I think I think the aspect of leaving a legacy has stuck with me,
Hmm.
and also with refashioning, making something beautiful out of something messy, I think is really powerful. I think that's why I was drawn to refashioning in the first place. Is sometimes life can be hard, right? Sometimes you can get tossed to the side, or you can feel broken, or you can feel hurt. But with sewing, I'm taking something that was tossed to the side, I'm turning it into something beautiful. And
Hmm.
I feel like for me, that's been my story of the Lord meeting me where I'm at and turning some of my ashes,
Hmm.
into beauty. And the legacy aspect too. Sewing is not particular to one type of person. It appeals to many, many different types of people, and it's a uniting factor. And I love that it unites generations, it unites cultures, it unites faiths, it unites so many different aspects of people. And so I love that. I love that something so unique as sewing can be a conversation starter, and connect. So yeah, I think sewing is beautiful.
Catherine, what's next for you and what's your dream?
I'll be honest, I feel like I am living the dream right now. I really am. My family is in such a sweet stage. My kids are all at the same elementary school right now, and I'm serving as the PTO president, so I get to see them all the time and interact with them while they're in school. And I really have, over the last couple years, my sewing page really has grown where I've had so many wonderful opportunities that I never saw coming in
Hmm.
2019 when I started this. Being a brand ambassador for Bernina has been an absolute goal. I don't think I can top that truly in my heart, because Bernina is, the Lamborghini of sewing machines, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, so I really think what I'm doing, I really am living the dream right now. And I'm curious to see where it goes, where my page grows, and the opportunities that come my way, I'm kind of down for anything right now and just seeing what comes my way.
So, in all we talked about today, is there any question I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
That's a great question. Well, have been thinking about something that I really would love to pass on to the audience. And that's where I found myself when I started sewing.
Hmm.
I was thick into motherhood. I did sew a little bit before I had kids, but I had to put sewing up for a couple years when I was having babies. And I found sewing to be such a therapeutic release when I was in those really small years of motherhood. Because if your household has been anything like mine, the dishes don't stay clean. Every night that dish sink is full of dishes and the laundry piles up and your house is always a mess. Like nothing stays in those little years of motherhood. But whenever you sew something, it stays.
Hmm.
And I think that was the most satisfying thing for me and that kept me going in those early years of motherhood is, yeah, the sink might be dirty again tonight, but I have a garment that's not going to unravel that I can wear again and again and again. And those 2 hours that I spent sewing during nap time now are going to provide benefits to me throughout the coming days that
Hmm.
don't go away, that aren't replaced. And I think there's something really powerful about sewing in that regard to get you through when you're going through tough seasons is you have something at the end of it that you can look at and admire and that will always be there. Does that make sense?
100%. And based on that, I have no doubt that our listeners would like to reach out to you either to talk to you more about that or your sewing or whatever. What's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, I'm an avid Instagrammer. I
Hmm.
post on there almost every day, and I really do try to get back to almost every message. So they can always reach out on Instagram. It's Bringing Sewing Back. The whole purpose of that name was I wanted to bring back the lost art of sewing to the modern day woman. So
Hmm.
bringing sewing back. They can reach out there, or they can always email me at bringingsewingback@gmail.com.
Perfect. Catherine, this has been wonderful, and I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's so fun talking to you.
Well, there you have it, another story about someone just like you. Someone for whom sewing and quilting is so much more than a hobby. It's a way of life and a connection to something bigger. If you know someone you think has an outstanding story, a story that should be shared on this podcast, please drop me a note to meg@soandsopodcast.com or complete the form on our website. Be sure to subscribe to, review, and rate this podcast on your favorite platform and visit our website, soandsopodcast.com, for more information about today's and all of our guests. That's SEWANDSO podcast.com. And finally, I want to thank Bernina for making this program possible. I'm Meg Goodman, and I look forward to you joining us next time on So and So.